I'm Justin Lesko, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and former pro MMA fighter.
And I'm Mike Callahan, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and a law enforcement officer.
Even if you're not trying to be a world champion or trying to tap Gordon Ryan and you just train for fun, you probably still want to get better at Jiu Jitsu. And most people in the world don't have the flexibility in their schedule to train 5 to 6 times a week to work towards that goal.
And then there's some people who move an hour away from their pals to a garbage state like New Jersey and really fuck up the training schedule.
Yeah, I don't know who would do that, but what is the minimum amount of times you need to train each week in order to get better at jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, like will you improve if you train 4 times a week, 3 times a week, once a month?
Maybe not once a month, but what is the bare minimum? What is the least amount you have to do in order to improve your game?
Well, for starters, once you upgrade from what you're wearing now to the gear from Epic Roll BJJ, you're going to want to start training every day just so everyone can see your new gear.
And you're going to wear your Epic Roll stuff everywhere you go because they have literally everything you could ever want related to jiu-jitsu. Hats, shirts, hoodies, joggers, of course, gis, rash guards, t-shirts, even coffee mugs and artwork.
Yeah, you can follow them on Instagram at Epic Roll BJJ. And since we're talking about minimums, if you're looking to spend the minimum amount on their gear, just use the coupon code podcast15. You'll be able to save 15% off of anything you buy from the site.
EpicRollBJJ.com will help you look your best both on and off the mats, no matter how much or how little you're training. EpicRollBJJ.com, coupon code podcast15.
Now let's see how good you can get with bare minimums. Welcome to That Jiu Jitsu Podcast.
So I guess before we get into the science behind it and the nerd things, just like off of feel, what do you feel like? When do you feel your best in terms of like training load per week and how much you're training?
At least 3 times a week. At least 3 times a week but that's not nowadays. If you're looking, and as we've progressed through the ranks, if you're looking to be competitive as a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, 3 days a week isn't going to cut it. You're at a professional level. As you progress through jiu-jitsu, it becomes more and more imperative to put more time in if you want to be competitive.
That's a theme that's going to repeat throughout this episode about percentages at the beginning versus percentages further along. But like you said, you have to train maybe a couple times a day and 5-6 times a week. That's training just in terms of just your jiu-jitsu training. That's not counting cardio and conditioning and running, and so that's just 5-6 training sessions on the mat rolling. But
it's a timing thing. Like I need a certain amount of mat time to get my timing down. You know, my game is my game. I need mat time to be able to go from, you know, a learning environment, you know, where you're just learning it, and then to increasing it to doing it real time, and then increasing it to doing it real time against more talented opponents. So it's about timing and repetition for me.
And I think a big part of it is, you know, the more time you spend rolling, the more your cardio improves. And I think just in general, you can sort of look at 2 facets of this discussion. And one is the improvements in your jiu-jitsu overall, but also the improvement in your cardio. Because I think eventually for most people, your jiu-jitsu skills will outpace your cardio. So at the end of a training session, you still have your skill and you still have your technique, but your cardio might be failing you. So I think we should look first at the cardio and fitness aspect before we look at like the technique and your overall skill.
Right.
If you're training you personally 3 times a week, do you feel like that's enough for your cardio?
No, I still do cardio. I've always done cardio separate of jiu-jitsu. And I notice a difference when I'm, you know, it wasn't until you and I started this show that I really started focusing on like heart rate monitoring in terms of my training. However, that's what I focus on now. I try to operate in like a target heart rate zone. But I feel like my jujitsu cardio, I can see a difference in my jujitsu cardio when I'm bumping up my other cardio.
When you're supplementing it with
It's
off the mat cardio, when you're not just relying on your
yeah,
ability to roll. So
it's a no brainer.
you kind of touched on it about like the beginning when you're a white belt and a blue belt versus, more experienced brown belt, black belt. But so there was a study and it was called The Effects of High Intensity Interval Training versus Moderate Intensity Continuous Training on Heart Rate Variability in Physically Inactive Adults, which top-notch title, top-notch article, one of my favorites, published in 2018. And the long and the short of it was that very inactive adults, when they put them on a program where they were doing just 20 minutes of cardio a day, it saw their heart rate variability improve in just 2 weeks. So basically, right off the couch beginners, it doesn't take a lot for an improvement. So if you're a white belt just walking in off the street and training, you're going to get better cardio in just as little as 2 weeks. But then if you look at like the Department of Health and Human Services, their guideline and their recommended cardio exercise per week is 150 minutes of moderate intensity. So again, like that's for an already fit person. The more in shape you are, the more you have to do to get more in shape. If you're a white belt, you can do less to get better cardio than a black belt can do.
Yeah, just to talk to the supplementing cardio, you can throw big words around, but you just need to constantly strive to improve. So some people will do, mix it up. I haven't done sprints since
I made you. Since I made you do them?
No. I used to do them. I do them on my street, but I do them like in when the weather is better. I'll start doing them again. But that doesn't mean that you can't do heart rate monitor. Like you can't monitor your heart rate through your training just by running. So I have a treadmill. You need to bump up the intensity. You need to bump up the distance. You need to train your body. Like if you and you'll know when you need to bump it up, when it starts becoming too easy.
Yeah, going on feel will get you so far. And again, if you're just getting into the sport and you're just now starting to improve your cardio, going on feel of my perceived exertion, how hard did I think this exercise was? How hard did I think this workout was? Will get you so far. And I consider myself to be a person who has very good cardio, and I can't just go on feel now because I need the numbers and I need the data and I need to know how long I was in specific heart rate zones, how long it took me to go from a max heart rate down to a lower zone, and just going off feel won't provide that to me. So again, because I'm not a beginner, I need to do more, not just in terms of doing more of like, I need to run more, I need to cycle more, I need to swim more. I need to do more with the knowledge and with the information I have to be able to make improvements in my cardio.
We're at the stage now where, a fight to win match for us is 7 minutes, 8 minutes. And, just through a regular training regimen, that you can do 8 minutes at a really high pace, essentially standing on your head. But when you start talking about these IBJJF tournaments where you have 10, 15, 12 minutes, whatever, in between your matches, you need to know the science behind your recovery. You need to be able to go in there knowing full well that you can be essentially fully recovered in 12 minutes from, your maximum heart rate. And there's really only one way to do that, and it's to train to know your heart rate, to train your heart rate. I don't think train your heart rate is the right thing to say.
Train around your heart rate, train based on your
right.
heart rate.
Yeah. We talked about IBJJF a little bit last year or last episode, but there's those times that they give you between matches. They are simply estimates. They are not written in stone, and you can think you're going to have 10 minutes, but they might give you one match in between. And guess what? If it's a quick submission, you're on.
I think that the ability to train on feel and your jujitsu as your cardio will work for a white belt. It will work for a brand new person. It will work for a person who's a white belt and already has an athletic base and someone who has no athletic base, because you all know that we've all seen examples of the person who's it's on their first day and they're a great athlete. And for the audio only people, I just did air quotes around great athlete, that gas out in one round of rolling because it's a different intensity, it's a different type of cardio. But like I said, as a white belt, jiu-jitsu can be your cardio, and if you're training 3 or 4 times a week, that is the cardio you need. But as you get better and you start competing more and you start getting into the professional ranks, the purple belt, brown belt, black belt, you need to be more scientific about it. And the days of, if you want to get better at jiu-jitsu and you want your cardio to be better, just train more jiu-jitsu, I think those days are behind us. And yes, there will be people in the comments who will say, what about X fighter? What about Y fighter who don't do any supplemental cardio? They don't do any lifting. They just show up and they just roll. Yes, there will be outliers who will make that work, but that's very difficult to make work where you're not at all focused on improving your cardio. You're just hoping to find it along the way. And I think you should go in more with a plan.
I agree with you on all of it. I'm not somebody who can just, although I will tell you that at BJJ United now, the level of intensity is far greater than any place I've trained before. They train, you're regularly doing between sometimes 6 to 10 rounds on your feet, 1 minute in between. So you're training your body, but you got to do more. You got to do more than that.
The one thing you can control in a match is how in shape you are. You can't control anything else that happens. You can have a plan for what happens, but you can't control what the other person's going to do. Just have good cardio. And I think a good guideline would be, if you're a white belt, your cardio can take care of itself. If you're a blue belt, you should mix in a couple just cardio workouts throughout the week. Purple belt and above, you should have a dedicated cardio plan specific to you. I don't think there's a cookie cutter like, oh, if you're a purple belt, you should run this many times for this many miles and do this many sprints. It should be tailored to you, and you should be doing the work to find out how do you tailor it to you. And you can send me a message on Instagram and I'll be happy to discuss your individual cardio needs with you, because I like cardio and I'm a nerd. So how many days do we need to train jiu-jitsu for our jiu-jitsu to get better? If our cardio is already there, if you're like me with fantastic cardio and you're like Mike with okay cardio, how many days do you need to train to get better if you're not worried about what's happening with your cardio? No, don't give me the answer. Don't give me the answer. We'll talk about it and then we'll give the answer at the end. And that's called building suspense.
That's what we in the biz call building suspense.
Like it or not, the IBJJF, they are the governing body for jiu-jitsu, and they have minimum times before you can get promoted for all belts. Blue belts, it's 2 years. Purple belts, it's 1.5. And brown belts, it's 1 year. But white belt has no minimum time. So for the colored belts, that's how long they think you need to spend at minimum at that belt to get better. And if we assumed you were training 7 days a week, because that's the max you can do in that period of time, that's a lot of mat time. But if you're only putting 1 day a week, I don't know that anyone is going to promote you. If you spend 2 years as a blue belt, but you only train once a week, I don't think you're going to go to purple belt.
Correct. I think that those are just, unfortunately, the IBJJF is going to, and now I'm doing air quotes, enforce those standards. There's always exceptions to the rules. With that being said, you need to, I'm not just talking about showing up and rolling live. That's the fun part. Live training is the fun part. Where you're going to improve, and Andrew Wiltsey was talking about it a little bit, is you need to drill. You need to learn these techniques through repetitions. We have the luxury, and it's extremely beneficial to us now, of having YouTube. So you can be on YouTube getting mental reps in too. So it's not just limited to what happens in the gym nowadays, but you need to put a significant amount of time in. Jiu-jitsu especially now, has evolved to where people are consistently improving at an alarming rate, at an alarming pace. You know, Gordon Ryan has been trained in jiu-jitsu, I want to say, for 7 years, 6 or 7 years, and he's the best grappler in the world. You have to break it up. You have to look at different ways to improve. And yes, through live training is a way to improve, but there's so much more to improving your jiu-jitsu skills than just showing up late to class, not going through warm-ups because warm-ups suck.
Look who's talking. Look who's talking.
No, I do warm-ups now. But anyway, there's so much more to it. We stretch too. We do Saturday stretches at BJJ United.
I stretch every single night of my life. I stretch every night for at least 40-ish minutes. And I'm going to jinx myself, I never have muscular issues where I'm like, oh, I pulled this muscle. Oh, this muscle is sore. Like, I'm always good to go.
What do you have to have like a mental thing in your head of like what you do?
I do. Certain. So like I foam roll every night. I go through my foam roll routine and then I'll stretch. And then some nights I'll like static stretch. Other nights I'll go more through range of motion drills in all of my joints. Some nights I'll do like a combination. Some of it's based on feel, just like where I'm feeling like, oh, I worked a lot of this specific body part. I need to work on this. I have flexibility goals. I want to get closer to a pancake. I want to get closer to a split. I want to get closer to like butterfly stretch with my knees on the ground. So I might work specific things like that. And everyone's tuned out because no one cares about my stretching routine, but you asked me about it, so I'm going to keep talking about it. But I like stretching. It's relaxing for me. And if I'm sitting watching TV, I might as well do something to make my body better. So I stretch every night.
Calling all nerds, calling all nerds, calling all nerds. Nerds unite, nerds unite.
Present.
Let's talk about cycling. Let's talk about cycling and stretching. And then the listener said, I didn't think it could get any worse than when he was talking about cycling. And then the motherfucker started talking about stretching.
Don't ask questions if you don't want the answer. But yeah, so you were talking about, you have to put the time in, but that could be a little discouraging for people who don't have the schedule where they can train that much. Like the message of today's show is not that you can't get better unless you're training 5 to 6 times a week. It just, your goals should reflect the amount of time you can put into them. So
yeah, 100%.
So
100%. You can't, and I this is not meant to discourage anybody. In a way, like we're at the point in our lives now where, we're hobbyists. We compete here and there, but we're hobbyists. Like we don't make a living off of training jiu-jitsu. It's unreasonable to think as a hobbyist who trains 3 times a week or 2 to 3 times a week, that you're going to be able to, as you get, your brown belt or your black belt, that you're going to be able to compete with brown belts and black belts who are doing this for a living, full time.
I had the time in my life where I was able and fortunate enough to train 2 times a day, 6 days a week, and it was the best, but that's just not where I am in my life right now. I also notice if I don't train for a long time, like when I broke my arm that time or COVID, it takes a long time for me to start getting better again. Like it's not like you jump back on the mat and training session 1 to training session 2 you get better, and training session 2 to training session 3 you get better. It takes me a couple weeks of like regaining my timing and regaining my comfort on the mat that I feel like I improve even if I'm rolling 4 or 5 times a week.
One of the most discouraging things to speak to that point is that most times you don't even recognize the progress you're making because you're so focused on it.
Yeah.
We've all been there. There are times where you make just huge jumps in a short period of time and then you plateau out, and it can be extremely discouraging, but don't let that discourage you from putting the time in. Whatever time, your expectations on your skills and improving upon those skills, they need to be reasonable. So have reasonable expectations and base those expectations off of the time that you can put into improving. Don't set goals that are unreasonable, because if you do that, it's going to do nothing but discourage you.
Absolutely.
So figure out how much time you can put in and put that time in.
It's just like the cardio that we just talked about. If you're an absolute beginner, if you're a white belt on day one, from day one to day two, you will get better. From day two to day three, you will get better. That will eventually run out. Jiu-jitsu progression isn't linear, and you're not going to go up at an angle on the bar graph or on the line graph just forever. It's like lifting weights. You're not going to just every day add 2 more pounds and end up bench pressing 100,000 pounds because you just kept going. And it sounds super obvious, but it makes sense if you think about it for more than a second. If you want to be a world champ, you're going to have to train a lot harder than someone who's not trying to be a world champion, someone who's a blue belt and just trying to have fun at jiu-jitsu. Their goals are different. They can still make improvements, but the improvements are different. They're just different level of improvements. And not even talking about the cardio side of improving a fight camp, the technique, your rolling ability, how well you do in your matches. It's going to take more time at black belt than it did at white belt and blue belt. Like, it just is. And
Yeah.
again, it sounds obvious,
that.
but you need to understand that. In conclusion, we did lead off with a question, and we sort of framed it like we were going to tell you the answer of what's the bare minimum you can do to get better. If we look at a person who we assume their cardio is not an issue, and we assume that they're past the point of brand new white belt where they can get better each single day, I think training once a week will keep you where you are. I don't think you will get much better, but I don't think you'll get a lot worse. And you can improve on certain things. Like, you could say, today I'm working on my open guard, and that one thing will get better if you do that once a week, and that's the only thing you do. But overall, I think your game will stay kind of flat.
Yeah, I'll just say this: if you're a purple belt, if you're a brown belt, if you're a black belt, and if you're a black belt and you're trying to win a world championship, you're doing this every day and you're doing it multiple times a day. But if you're a purple belt or you're a brown belt and you're trying to make noise, at major tournaments, or you're trying to push your name out there, you need to be doing something every day. And even on these rest days, you need to be having an active recovery, an active rest day. But you need to be doing something to improve yourself, whether it's jiu-jitsu, strength, or conditioning. You need to be doing something every day. And I tell that to people. Like, I try to do something active every day. Every day I try to do something active, even if it's just going on a short bike ride. But like, if you're trying to improve in jiu-jitsu, you need to do something that's going to directly correlate into you improving as a jiu-jitsu athlete, whether it's drilling or watching tape or sparring or strength and conditioning. Anything that's going to help you improve, you need to be doing that essentially every day. And I understand rest days and active recovery days, but that's my thoughts on it. They say it as a purple belt, you're a professional jiu-jitsu player. Even like that's what's viewed as, and I'm doing air quotes again. That's what's viewed as, the level, the jump from blue to purple. You're a professional now, and you need to put in the time if you're going to succeed at the highest level of the, again, with the air quotes, professional ranks of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and I think if you're just a hobbyist and you just like jiu-jitsu and you do it for fun,
right,
and you still want to get better at jiu-jitsu even though you're not trying to be a world champion, you can make improvements at 1 day a week, but they'll be small. I don't think you're going to make a lot. If you go to 2 days a week, if you go to 3 days a week, you will get better. And if you can do more than just your jiu-jitsu for cardio, if you can add in some running and some cycling and doing some sprints, you also 1 day a week in cardio outside the mat, you're not going to gain tons of cardio, but you won't lose anything. It'll keep you where you are. You can be an out of shape white belt and beat the other white belts, but you can't be an out of shape black belt and beat Gordon Ryan. Like, you just can't do it. So
you can't. Well, you're not going to be an in shape white or black belt and beat Gordon Ryan.
Right.
You're not going to be. There's not going to be two in shape brown belts aren't going to beat Gordon Ryan at the same time.
One really in shape brown belt and one okay in shape brown belt is not going to beat him in combined.
Listen, man, you're going to gain weight. It'll be fine. No. Don't be so hard on yourself.
I'm still sitting at 80
eventually
kilos.
Eventually you'll weigh more than a prepubescent teenage girl. You will eventually.
I'm feeling strong these days.
Oh wow, yeah, that's cute.
Might have to buy a large size shirt soon.
Oh wow, what for? What? Just to use as a blanket?
Use it as a snuggie. I can tell you were looking at your phone.
I was just reading an article. It just popped up on my phone about how Conor McGregor hasn't paid the $500,000 to Dustin Poirier's
oh, really?
foundation that he promised. Yeah.
You know, we're going to go off on a side note, and this might get cut out of the episode because he got this alert in the middle of recording. Who is this article from, and was it sourced, or was it an anonymous source?
It's on it's on bjpen.com.
bjpen.com does not count. bjpen.com is not a legitimate media site.
Oh my god, you're seriously like a female. You don't even let me finish. It's a tweet from Dustin Poirier. Do you want to dispute this now?
No, go ahead with your evidence that I asked for.
Okay. It said that's a fun prediction at the Notorious MMA because he predicted
fourth round
KO.
Yeah.
So you also predicted a donation to my foundation, and you and your team stopped responding after the fight in January. See you soon, July 10th, paid in full.
I don't understand why Conor wouldn't pay it, and I don't understand why Dustin wouldn't have brought it up sooner.
Because I think that Conor McGregor blows through his fucking money. I think he blows through his money.
You think he's Floyd Mayweather right now with no money? You think he blew it all?
I don't think he has no money, but I think he blows through his money. And I don't think that he's nearly as well off as he portrays it to be.
I don't disagree with you.
That's what I think.
So if he made $100 million from the Floyd fight, how much of that do you think he has left?
I don't think he made $100 million from the Floyd Mayweather fight.
I think he did. I think it was reported that he did.
He wants to say that he did, but I don't know. I mean, has that been confirmed? I'll look right now.
I'm already beat you to it. McGregor made roughly $85 million.
No, like he's a millionaire. He's a multi-millionaire. But at the same time...
You think he's got $20 million left in the bank?
I would hope.
Do you know what?
I would hope.
You know what we're forgetting about is the fucking whiskey. Conor basically got bought out of Proper 12, and like a big Mexican beverage parent company with like a bunch of other liquors underneath them, like exercised their call option on Proper 12 and basically bought him out. And it was rumored that it was for like a fucking shit ton of money. I think my man's got $100 million. I think he's got $100 million in the bank.
Here's hoping. But here's
hoping. Like he's going to give you some.
No, I mean, I don't give a fuck one way or the other. But there's so many. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors about how people make their money. But like Blazarian portrays himself as like this billionaire, and it came out that he essentially doesn't have any money, and he's just bankrupt in that Ignite company, and he's just. So anyway, we're too far off topic. We'll talk about that as their fight nears, because I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to talk about.
We will, but this is just a little bit of a live reaction to We Get News, and Dustin Poirier will beat Conor McGregor in the third fight.
I don't think so.
All right, we'll discuss it as it gets closer. But to circle back, to get back on topic, in case we haven't already said it, the bare minimum amount that you can train to get better. It's going to depend on how long you've already trained. It's going to depend on how good your cardio is. It's going to depend on what you want to do. Get to the mat as much as you can and train as much as you can, but you can get better marginally at 1 day a week. You need at least 2 days on the mat a week to get better at Jiu Jitsu.
What he said.
If you can only get to train twice a week, and that's the most you can do, and that's what your schedule is, you're already there. Do 1 5-minute round extra each day you train. because that adds up. That's 10 extra minutes a week, 520 minutes a year, and that's 8.5 extra hours of rolling that you can do every year by doing one extra match when you're there. Hashtag math tip.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. We put the links below to our Instagram account, so if you want to follow us individually or you want to follow the show, just give them a click and check them out.
Don't forget to check out epicrollbjj.com and use the coupon code podcast15 to take 15% off of your order. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments how long you think you need to train each week to get better. Say Justin's a really cool guy and not a nerd.
I can't do that.
I didn't think so, but I thought maybe if I prompted you for the video, you'd have to.
I'm not a liar.
Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.